hop and hippity hop. I'll never be a millionaire. Whoa, boom, boom, and hippity zoom. I'm in love, I'm in love, I'm in love. Hi, everyone, and welcome to a year end wrap up episode of the Brownian Notion. I'm Gogol.
And I'm Ananya. Just to make sure that our listeners know that wrap up does not mean that this season is over. We still have a lot of plans for season one of our brand new, I think it's still new,
Yeah, yeah.
podcast. But here we are just to like talk about the journey that has been and how our years have been and how everything has been for the podcast and what are we looking forward.
And plans with the podcast. There are
Yeah,
many.
what are our plans with the podcast? Yeah.
So, how was your year like?
I think it didn't start too good, but I think it has been better than I expected. So I'm grateful for that, actually. I'm trying to be a little more grateful since the pandemic.
Yeah.
Yeah, it started kind of glum. My sister moved out. She was living with me for quite a few months, and I took some hard decisions, but I'm optimistic about that. Like, I'm trying to move back to India from USA,
Hmm.
and this year made me take that decision. So I'm kind of happy about that. That has been my year. How has your year been?
Yeah, it's on the similar lines. I'm trying to be more optimistic and positive about things and trying to find things to be grateful about. But yeah, it was not too good, but also not too bad. It could be a lot worse. So
Yeah.
mixed bag, I think.
Yeah, mixed bag. It's always hard to summarize a year, right? Like, because you
Yes.
always have some real low
Yes.
moments and some hopefully high
Yes.
moments. So it's always very confusing. I always have very conflicting thoughts about summarizing a year.
Yeah.
But do you have anything that off the top of your head is going to be exciting for 2022?
I'm really hoping to travel again. That's the
Nice.
only thing I look forward to. But other than that, I'm also quite excited, as you know, about the podcast.
Yeah.
And I think this is what I would like to talk a bit more about in this episode because, yeah, I have been toying with this idea for a long time. And it was quite incredible that I spoke to you randomly over phone one evening
Yeah.
and we were talking about I don't exactly remember how we started talking about this idea of having a podcast and it just
You were saying something random, and I was like, you should have an audience or something like that.
we were talking about something random and then yeah we just decided to start this and it's quite incredible and remarkable how fast everything moved from that point.
We decided in October, right? And I think November,
Yeah.
we already had our first episode.
Yes, I think maybe not October, maybe end of September we decided. And in October we were already recording. So it was like within the span of maybe 2 weeks or something we started recording. And within the span of 2 months we had our first episode released, which is like incredible.
Yeah, it just seems very unreal sometimes. Like, there are times when people still congratulate me on the podcast. And for a second, I'm always like, huh, I actually do have it now. I mean, beginning of the year, I had no idea. Middle of the year, I had no idea this is going to happen. It was just a tiny little dream. And I never thought about what will be part of it because I always wanted it to be like different stories and people.
Right.
And I'm happy that we actually did do that. Like, it didn't diverge from what I had always wanted my podcast to sound like. So I'm happy
Yeah,
about
yeah,
that.
same.
And so far, our guests have been incredible, right?
Yeah.
Like, we have had some really good people.
And we also have really incredible people lined up for you guys.
Yeah, exactly.
So we are so excited to bring those voices, bring those stories to you. But yeah,
So, Gogol, one thing that pleasantly surprised me about the podcast is at first it was just like a two-person idea, and we were clearly having some gaps and issues with the different schedules and stuff.
right.
And then we were pleasantly surprised and grateful for Anna to join. Do you want to tell that story?
Oh
Because
yes.
she joined mid
Yes.
podcast. Yeah, like
Yes.
mid.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, we still hadn't released our episodes yet, so she already
Right.
started, helping with the editing and everything with the first episode already. But
Yeah, notes, organization.
yes, everything, and she's super organized and she helps a ton with all our work.
Yeah.
So what happened was we recorded our episode with Anna, the episode with friendship,
Yeah.
which is called A Friendly Banana. Um, And I think this was the third or the second episode we recorded, and we really liked her as a guest.
Yeah.
What happened was, if you remember, she had this document, because we always make this document for every guest that we have and we send it to them so that they can write down their notes. We can actually add to their notes, we can put down pointers of what we'll talk about. And Anna had this document as well,
Yeah.
and she wrote down like really detailed ideas of episodes, and those were like really concrete ideas. They were not like, oh, you know what, you can do this, you know what, you can do that. Anna was just so methodical, so precise, so dedicated, that I really liked that, and I immediately felt that this is something that was lacking. And at some point it is much better to have a third person in a group, I feel, because then if one of us is sick or unavailable, then it doesn't put so much pressure on the other person. You can still have two in the group and share the workload, talk about different things. So I asked you, and I think at first you were a bit apprehensive because, of course, you didn't know Anna, and I completely understand that.
Right, right. Yeah.
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 I'm very thankful that you agreed to it, and I'm very thankful to Bana that she agreed to be a part of our podcast as well. Because at first she was also quite apprehensive. She was very eager to help,
Hmm.
but she kept saying, I don't want to like cross some boundaries. I don't want to overimpose my ideas. I'm like, no, dude, nothing of that sort is gonna happen. You're just gonna be so much of a help you don't even understand at this point.
Yeah,
And
yeah. I mean, I think I just knew her from that one recording, and when I looked at some of the documents she had created just out of the goodness of her heart,
yeah,
like not even thinking that she may or may not join us,
exactly.
I was like, yeah, we need this person. We are severely lacking this kind of input,
Yeah,
who is a friend but will also be very unbiased. And I don't know, just because I feel like both of us have very strong likes and dislikes, and she acts as a very good buffer. Like, she is very level headed,
yeah,
not that we are not level headed, I'm just saying, but she's very like, no, this makes sense, that does not make sense, like basically what a producer should do, like take
exactly.
some
Yes.
decisions. Yeah.
And
Yeah.
because both of us, we come from the same background, more or less. We are,
Yes,
we
yes.
are from the same city. We are from the same culture. It's very difficult for us to kind of see the bigger picture sometimes.
Yeah, similar blind spots
Yeah,
basically.
we have similar blind spots, exactly. And Anna just fits in perfectly there. She will figure out questions and she will bring out pointers that we do not think about. And I think that is how already she has been like so much of a help. And we couldn't have done all these episodes without her, I think.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. Even when she's not part of the recording, she's a huge help.
Yeah, and just going back to what I was saying, the reason I actually approached you and I told you about this idea was the way she was writing these things. These notes by no means looked like I'm doing a favor to a friend.
Right, exactly. Yeah, these were not run of the mill ideas.
Yeah, she was doing this like she was already invested in.
Right, right. Like she was already part of the team, basically.
Yes,
Yeah,
yeah. So it just made sense to bring her on board.
right. Yeah.
But let me ask you, because it is kind of little funny to me that our visions of the podcast kind of overlapped in a sense. So, do you think that the podcast that we have currently moves a bit in a different direction from what you had planned, or was it always like this?
The weird thing is, I don't know if it is actually a saying, but I believe in it that when something is right, it will just feel right.
Right.
So I had spoken to other people before that I wanted to do a podcast. While the responses always varied from, yes, I would do it, but I would not do anything but record.
Yeah.
I did not want to do all the heavy lifting with a full time job. And other than that, there were people who really, really wanted to talk about relationships.
Hmm.
As much as I like emotional discussions, I did not want to just do that because I didn't see myself as a listener listening to something like that regularly.
Right.
I wanted something light but also slightly heavy. And I'm so glad that we actually ended up doing that. Like, we started very chatty and we have covered some good topics. And we have some great topics lined up for this season and next season. So, yeah, actually, the vision kind of made sense. I didn't have a strong vision of what I wanted, but it just made sense that this is something I would like to listen to.
Right.
So, it should be out there. What about you? Did you have something different in mind or?
No, this is exactly what I had thought about, because my idea was always that the more I've traveled and mixed with people, and this is also part of our pilot, I think, that I've always felt that human emotions are very universal, that everybody feels the same kind of pain, same kind of happiness. All of these emotions are very universal. I just wanted to share with the world that, maybe a person who is fighting for women's rights in India has similar emotions or has similar problems, maybe of a very different scale, but inherently those emotions are very similar to what somebody would feel in a Western country, or even between Western countries. Somebody who feels heartbroken by something, some sort of grief, some sort of loss, would feel it the same way in Europe as compared to, say, in the United States. So this is what my dream was, and this is still my dream, is to get this platform to a place where we can actually bridge all these gaps that we have in our head, that we think that people are different, everybody is different. Of course everyone is different, but we are more alike than we believe.
Yeah.
So that was the idea, and I think we are kind of walking on that path, and I'm quite happy with whatever content we are putting out.
Yeah. For me, it was always about the different stories that people have because I love listening to people's stories. So, some of the stories that we have covered are really fun. So far, whatever we have recorded, I think, I don't know if we have aired this already, but I'll just give a little sneak peek if we have not. We speak to somebody who is a dungeon master in Dungeons and Dragons, and at first I was very skeptical that I have
Right.
never played this game, I have no interest in this game, how the episode will turn out to be. But I think it was one of the most fun conversations I had, even though I didn't do a lot of the talking. We try to make our guests a little bit of our highlight of the episode, but I think that was so pleasantly surprising for me. And yeah, it's one of my favorite episodes. Do you have a favorite?
We have recorded an episode where we talk about grief and loss and all those things. And I think at some point, maybe a couple of years ago, I saw a show, or like a talk show or a podcast, I don't really remember what. And these people were also talking about loss of people who are very close to these people who are talking about it. And I just felt that was so powerful that I immediately wanted to do it on my own. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah, yeah. And what I liked about that episode was how similar the experiences were, even though it
yes.
happened in three corners of the world.
Exactly. Right. Yeah, but I love that episode. I just think that episode is very, very, very powerful. I don't know how much of that power would come across in the final product that we release, but it was very powerful. I thought about that recording for the whole week, I think.
The recording itself was very, very cathartic for me because I feel
Yes.
like I don't talk about that part of my life almost ever
Yeah.
because I don't need to. Yeah, and it was great. And I hope we can do something similar again.
This is also something that, like, consciously want this podcast to be. I want this podcast to be a platform where you see that it is okay to feel guilty about certain things, and it is okay if you have not been your best self, I don't know, 5 years ago. You are still worthy of being loved, worthy of care, worthy of happiness, everything. It's fine. You are a human being, and we do not want this podcast to be all perfect and sunshine and rainbows and unicorns. No.
Yeah, yeah, that's not life. So
That's not life.
why,
Yeah.
yeah, the podcast should not be like that either.
So even though we will probably for most of the episodes laugh our asses off, there will be some that will probably make you cry, or if not cry, at least make you think about life and stuff. I don't know.
Yeah, and even if they just make you seen,
Yes,
that's also that's
exactly.
also our goals met. Yeah.
Yeah. So this season, of course, we are planning to have this season wrapped up in, say, a couple of months. We are not really sure of the date yet, but at least we'll have one more season the next year, right? In 2022.
Yes, yes, that's the plan.
So where do you see the next season going? Interesting plans do you have for the next season, so to say?
So I have some personal aspirations.
Okay.
I don't know how much we can meet them, but the fact that I'm moving back to India, I want to take advantage of that because there are many stories about India I want to tell. And yeah, obviously, if we all agree on that, I want to tell stories about people who are making real life changes, like, I guess, helping animals or
Mm,
fighting climate change, or scientists who do research which impacts real global change, stuff like that. But I don't know if all of that will actually happen. I want to
right.
in the future. What are your plans?
It's kind of on the similar lines, like we were discussing just before
Thank God.
recording this. What?
I said, thank God.
Okay, I heard hang on. Um, yeah, it's kind of on the similar lines as we were discussing just before recording this episode. We already know a few of these people who are like really inspirational towards us, but just because social media today and media in general today kind of tries to focus more on people who are loud than people who are just putting their heads down, doing their thing, helping people. We want to give these people a platform, a voice, and maybe share their inspiring stories with you.
Yeah, that's the plan, that we have some more stories, and we are always open to suggestions. We have
Yes,
already have had some guests recommend more guests to us. We have had some great listener feedback. So if you have any feedback, thoughts, comments, suggestions, always hit us up, because we have not yet completely planned the next season yet. So we
exactly.
are open to a lot of ideas. Yeah.
Exactly. Also, if you have some specific questions that you want us to answer, we are also happy to do that. I remember one of our listeners, who's also a friend of mine, she was actually asking me, why is there a change of tonality between our episodes? Like, for example, there are some of our episodes which are a bit more serious, which are a bit more fact oriented, and we don't laugh so much in those episodes. We try to keep it as crisp as possible, as on point as possible. And this person, she came up with a fair point, that why not also have a banter, have a chat also in these episodes.
Yeah, that's a good point.
That's a good point, but
Yeah.
in my opinion, the reason I kind of want to do that, and I might be wrong here because we are all doing this for the first time, is that, as we said, like, life is not all about
Sunshine.
jolly frolicking around. Yeah,
Yeah, yeah,
sunshine.
yeah. No, I agree with you actually. So the thing is, I feel like it depends, right? Like if we are talking about a semi-serious topic, we can definitely have some banter if it
Right.
feels right. But
Yeah.
then there are episodes which are just heavy. We can't really preface that with banter. It'll just almost seem a little rude, for
Yeah.
lack of a better word. I feel like even though we don't have banter, we do have recommendations in the end, which is kind of banter for me, because it kind of ties the episode together very
Right.
nicely. We have tried to keep that pretty consistent. So that was our way of keeping the tonality similar, if not same.
Do we again recommend something
We today are kind of out of recommendations, believe it or not. Two people who like to recommend things
for
constantly.
everyone?
At least I
Yeah.
do. I know
I
you
do
do
too.
too.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
do too.
Just nothing is fitting the tone of the episode. So if you guys have any recommendations, please hit us up. We would like
Yes.
to read them, listen to them, watch them, tell you if you're right, because we love telling people if they're right. No, I'm just kidding. But if you have
Opposite.
any recommendations, please let us know. We'd be
Yes.
happy to share it with everyone.
Yeah, maybe we'll have a new segment next season where we share recommendations of our listeners with other listeners. I don't know. We'll
Yeah,
see.
yeah. I mean, I have a
um,
lot of recommendations. I already thought of a couple, but nothing just fits the year end
yes,
dramaticness. So,
dramaticness of,
yeah, it's year end is very dramatic. So,
yes. We recommend you to be grateful and happy and I don't know what. Be safe, wear masks. I don't know.
wear masks,
Get a
that's
vaccine.
my recommendation. Get
Yes,
vaccinated.
get
If you have
vaccinated.
access to a booster shot, get it.
Yes.
Get vaccinated. That's, we don't take stands on this podcast, but guys, come on.
Yeah, come
High fucking time.
on. Okay, so having said that, we are so happy you guys decided to join along.
Yeah.
Um,
And we hope
we,
you continue, please.
we hope you continue.
Yeah,
Um,
and this is not our season wrap up. This is just us sharing thoughts about the podcast so far and our years a little bit. So,
yeah,
yeah,
exactly.
definitely tune in next Monday too.
Yes,
Yes,
next
please.
Monday we'll have a very good episode, hopefully.
Hopefully,
so
yes.
so hopefully see you there. We just want to say thank you for making our year special. I think it got remarkably better in the second half because of this podcast, because of all of you, because you decided to join along, because you decided to listen to the two of us, so thank you so much, and
Yeah.
see you in 2022.
See you in
2022.
2022. Get vaccinated. Bye.
Bye.
And hippity hop, I'm as happy as I can be. Whoa, boom, boom, man.
to a New Year's New Year's what new